Hello.
Good afternoon.
Rain stop play.
Yeah, it's that kind of time of year, really, isn't it?
We could have done it under an umbrella. Filmed it, that is, under an umbrella.
Yeah, we could have filmed it under an umbrella. It would have just taken another step in the COVID ventilation to an extreme, really, wouldn't it?
I think my husband was worried about his camera, which is perfectly reasonable because you don't want to get rain on your camera.
These techie professionals are a bit like that, aren't they? You know, I'd be more concerned about Don getting too wet. He looked a bit straggly, wouldn't he?
I've been more worried about my hair.
Yeah, it looks very nice. Have you had it done?
Yeah, I've had it a large amount cut off.
Yeah, it's very nice. Very suitable. Very suitable.
Very suitable, thank you.
Suitable.
Not sure what that means.
You're becoming of a clergy lady.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Not sure how I feel about that either.
That wasn't a sexist comment you accused me of last week. I thought, for me, I thought it was rather good, really.
Good. Anyway, how are you? You right?
No, I'm extremely exhausted and tired and worn out.
And so soon after your holiday.
Yeah.
Is that because you just got too much work on?
I think we've all got too much work on. Is the honest answer.
It's quite relentless at the moment, isn't it? There's just an awful lot to do.
Yeah. And rather inconsiderately, people keep dying.
Yes, I have noticed. There's been an upsurge in our funerals.
You had an awful lot of funerals while I was on holiday, and they still continue to, sadly, for the families, of course, they still continue to flood in. 3 today.
3, gosh.
Never mind 2 burials of ashes and all kinds of other things.
Well, it's good because we know that some of our colleagues in different areas of the country don't hardly get a look in on funerals anymore at all, do they? So we're good too.
But there is, of course, an happier thing because I've got a wedding on Saturday, last of the season. It's the last of the season's weddings. Much reduced in number, sadly, for the young couples and the young people. But last one this week. Although I do rush straight off from it to bury some more ashes, but apart from that, we've got a bagpipe player because we can't have bells. They're having a bagpipe player.
Lovely. We had bagpipes at the funeral yesterday, but recorded ones. We didn't have a live one.
I know, we've got a real bagpipe man coming.
But no bunny.
Thankfully, no. No, I would ban bunnies and all other animals from weddings.
Yeah, the bunny's becoming legendary already from last week's wedding.
Yeah. The church warden was a bit more concerned about the lack of social distancing when the rings were being looked for.
Well, that was the trouble. Suddenly everyone was over the bunny basket. It wasn't great. We had a cat.
It wasn't a bushel basket, it was a bunny basket.
Exactly. We had a cat and a hearse yesterday as well. We were.
One.
Sorry? A real one. I mean, it wasn't anything to do with the deceased. And once they'd taken the coffin out and the hearse was sitting open at the churchyard, our resident churchyard cat, who lives next door to the churchyard in Beaminster, it was in the hearse. So, but he didn't stay in the hearse. So
no, I've had to start closing my window in the morning when I'm saying prayers because Morse, the other half of Morse and Lewis being dead by a car. Morse keeps jumping into the windows. I'm deep in prayer. I suddenly hear this thump and the cat's rubbing around my legs. So I've had to close the windows. He sits on the window.
Becoming over familiar.
Yes, he sits on the window scratching with his paw to come in.
Oh, sad.
So
there we are.
He's banned. I did get attacked earlier in. Dear viewer, you may like to know this. I actually went to Poundbury today, which is a bit like Toy Town. If you don't know this part of Dorchester, do look Poundbury up, HRH and all that. And I got lost, of course. I didn't know where I was going, and the sat-nav took me to a square two streets away.
It's very difficult to find your way around Poundbury, it's my opinion.
But I ended up in a thing called Pummery Square, which I've never been to. I've been to other bits of it, and I needed the road 2 across, but the postcode got me there. And but the house I went to visit, I was attacked by their dog, and they seemed incapable of stopping it going berserk. And it barked non-stop from the kitchen all through the time I was meeting. So she said, "Oh, I don't know what it needs," and I suggested a bullet. But
ever compassionate.
ever compassionate, yes. So yeah, so yes, all is busy. Bit of Matthew today, a bit more Matthew, and a bit more Matthew next week as well.
I know. So we've sort of departed from. Well, no, more Matthew. I guess we've jumped a little bit, haven't we? Oh, we had a little dalliance in Luke last week because we were celebrating St. Luke's Day, but
We were.
Back to Matthew. Right, should we have our pause then?
Go for the pause, dramatic pause. Shall we go for?
This is Matthew 22, 34 to 46 on the last Sunday after Trinity. Gosh, come to the end of that long trawl through Trinity.
Okay.
So here we are.
29th Sunday in Ordinary Time for the Roman Catholic Church.
Thank you for pointing that out. So here we go. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbour as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." Now, while the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them this question: "What do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "How is it then that David, by the Spirit, calls him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet'? If David thus calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one was able to give him an answer, nor from that day did anyone dare to ask him any more questions.
Wonderful. No, I love the two commandments of Jesus. Love God with all your heart, etc. And love your neighbour as yourself. Because I think he puts, for me, everything that Jesus and God, of course, stands for. Because, all the rest of the commandments about not killing anyone or not stealing or not, liking your neighbour's ass or whatever it may be, and all those, you wouldn't want to do any of that anyway if you love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength, and you love your neighbour.
No, you're right. I mean, we talk about a way of life, don't we? And we have that wonderful way of life that we adopt as from the Northumbrian community. But if you were really looking for the most basic way of life, that's it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbour as yourself, and just get on with it.
And on that statement, we could end now because,
in some ways,
and think and ponder on that because it's absolutely true. It's very interesting because yesterday you were supervising the delightful Fiona. Again, viewers, she does exist. One day you may see her. And I was supervising our ordnand in training. And part of this first course she's doing, as you're probably aware, is about Black Lives Matter. And she was having to ask a questionnaire of me as to what I thought, how I thought our churches responded to this thing at the moment, and what we had done or were doing or were planning to do, which was very interesting and a good insight into the future. But also the deanery, how did we, what kind of things that we talked about and we felt. And one of the questions is, did I think that many of our congregation would have I can't say hatred because that's not the word she used, but would have would still not support Black Lives Matter. And I paraphrase that because I can't remember the exact question. And I actually quoted that by saying that if they did, then they were going against Jesus' commandment to love God and to love neighbour.
What if they didn't support Black Lives Matter, then they were contravening that commandment?
Or I know it's controversial and can be seen as reverse racism if you're not careful by saying all lives matter. And I know why it's controversial. I can understand. Of course, I understand that. But to say that we all in life matter, which is key to Jesus's command, is key. And if anybody would say that, oh no, it doesn't matter, or too much fuss is being made about it, they've probably got little insight into the way in which it affects other people's lives by denying that we're all loved children of God. And and by loving your neighbour, who is anyone, not just the person who you knock on the door and ask for a bowl of sugar from every time you run out, or whatever, that it's actually everyone. How do we show God's love to everyone in the world?
Yeah, and it has that sense of equality, isn't it? That and it's, I mean, for the context of that piece in Matthew, they're trying to catch him out, aren't they? Because he's already put pay to the Sadducees, who were one particular group of kind of traditional Jewish leaders, and now the Pharisees, who are the lawyers of the leadership, are trying to catch him out.
And the real fundamentalists.
Yeah, the ones who are in charge, and it, and it's interesting because it's about power here, isn't it? It's about them saying, who are you? And by what authority do you have to do the things that you do? Yeah. It's still about his identity and what power that he believes he has. And of course, as we know, Jesus holds the power so lightly because he's so humble. But, they're challenging it. And for me, Black Lives Matter is about power. It's about privilege. It's about recognizing that for too long, white privilege has been the default, and it's wrong. And even if we say that we are colourblind, it's still wrong, because actually, that doesn't liberate the oppressed. This is about liberation. And for, in fact, next week's the thing we're going to read next week for Rev Chat is all about the liberation of the people who traditionally in the world are downtrodden and at the bottom of society. So yeah, it's really, absolutely, it's so, it's so simple on one level and so challenging.
And I think
so challenging to do it properly, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on that again next week or whenever we record the one for the week after. And I like the way Jesus, I don't know whether Jesus is laid back. I'm sure he actually has his anxieties and his worries and he's overworked, the same as all of us, because we're told he gets exhausted and he goes away for times of quiet and peace because he needs it. But I love the way he challenges them back. So who do you think this Messiah is? If you don't recognise me, who do you think he is? Whose son is he? And of course, they refer back to the Jewish tradition of understanding he's the son of David. To which Jesus said, righto. But if the Spirit calls him Lord, who then does that make him?
Yeah,
he's still the son of David. Yeah,
and he's quoting Psalm 110, so he's quoting David to them. Yeah.
Himself, yeah. So if you say he's son of, that's fine. But and they still don't get it though. That's the thing, isn't it? Now, is it that they don't get it because they're just thick and stupid and come from Smethwick like myself? And, or is it that they don't want to understand it because it challenges their, as you say clearly earlier, their authority in all of this? Or is it that they genuinely still don't believe that the Messiah has come yet? Now, there could be could be a possibility. It can't possibly have happened because we've waited for all these centuries and it hasn't happened. Why should it suddenly happen now?
Yeah.
But Jesus is still saying, "But who do you think I am?"
Yeah. And actually, it's interesting talking about challenging power and are they too thick to realise, or are they deliberately obtuse because they don't want to be challenged? They want to keep their status quo, and they don't want to be challenged by him, or the offer is too difficult to accept because it requires a lot of backpedaling and it requires a lot of self-examination and admittance that they're wrong, which is always tricky for any of us to admit. And actually,
I think we have to bear in mind, of course, Jesus challenges Pharisees a lot in the Gospels.
Yeah.
I'm fairly convinced, though, they're not the same group of Pharisees every time.
No. Really picked on them, yeah.
Today's lot may not have heard the challenge from a previous time.
But I would have thought they would talk to each other.
Well, I think the message, obviously, has infiltrated, because the message of Jesus himself has infiltrated very quickly, and someone calling himself the Messiah. But of course, we do have to remember there were lots of people claiming to be the Messiah around at that time. Mm. And whilst I don't want to let the Pharisees or the Sadducees off the hook at all, because they are a pretty stupid lot in many ways, but no, they're not. They are determined lot, determined to get Jesus out of the way. That's really what they want, just so they can get on with their, no nonsense, we're in charge, we'll still lay the law down and you'll do as I say type of life, really.
But that is it's interesting. We talked about Black Lives Matter a moment ago, but it's the same thing that when, there's been a lot of difficulties about Black Lives Matter, because for some people, it's just too hard to change and to be reflective on what needs to change and to look in our own hearts and think, actually, are we racist? Are we privileged? Are we behaving in ways that we have given to be socially acceptable but actually are wrong and need challenging? And Jesus is very good at that. He pours right into the heart of stuff, and he just says, just because it's always been like this, that is not a good enough reason for it to stay like this.
I couldn't agree more. No, you're absolutely right. And that was reflected a little bit in the kind of provocative. Nay, would I do anything provocative on Facebook of a night time? When I printed that collect of the plague from the Book of Common Prayer. Yeah. It brought an awful lot of comments, and I had a couple of phone calls saying, you can't possibly, and it's interesting because you're disturbing what we like, part of it.
Yeah.
And they were arguing against themselves because they were saying, this is awful, And I was saying, but it's a collect in the book, and but we can't believe in it, but the rest of which we're quite happy to believe in, thank you very much, and take on. But and it is quite interesting, because that's a little bit about the Pharisees. If we admit that you are the Son of God, not just the Son of David, then, as you said a moment or two ago, it's a great challenge to change everything we've known. But we really want to stick with the comfortable bits we like, but we don't want to accept the challenge that this brings to us.
Absolutely. And that is, and there, I see echoes there exactly as we've talked about the traditions in the church that we uphold that sometimes need challenging, the traditions in our society that we uphold and need challenging. Yeah. We don't stand still. We're constantly being challenged to live better and different lives. And Jesus is taking the prayer from the Jewish faith. That's not unfamiliar words to them. What are the greatest commandments? It's part of their Jewish heritage.
Yeah.
But it's being challenged to say, and what does that look like now? And that for us is the same challenge. Actually, what does it look like now in your life today to show that you love God and love your neighbour as yourself?
Yeah, and the setting of those two great commandments are quite good, because what Jesus is reminding us is that everything that has gone before, which we now classify as the Old Testament, they didn't have that choice, but we now classify as the Old Testament. We understand it, of course, of being the story of where things came from, leading through to God's deliverance through the Messiah. And Jesus is saying all the rest counts and is important, but now this is the new beginning. And it's not that the old 10 commandments are totally defunct.
No.
Because if he'd have said that, the Jews really would have been up in arms with their laws and rules, whatever. But he's saying what you've got to understand is God has fulfilled that promise that he said he would do, and now we move on, and this is the way to move on.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
So, you can join us, as you all well know, on social media. There's daily updates on Facebook, stuff on Instagram at Beaminster Team, and our website, beaminsterteamchurches.org. Lots of stuff being planned for Advent, for Christmas, full programme for Remembrance as well. So check there, find out what's going on, and come and join us. We'll see you very soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.